it's a time full of change for the GAA at the minute, and it doesn't necessarily handle change that well all the time. So,
why is that?
Well, it's a body that, and this isn't a criticism, but it's a body that makes its major decisions at an annual meeting that requires a 2/3 majority. So when you can change things once a year, with the exception of special Congress, when you can change things once a year and you need, it's 60% now, sorry, and you need more than 60% of the people in the room to agree to something, and for most of its history it was 2/3 of 66%, it's automatically hard to, it makes change very, very difficult. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think an organisation that size and with that much influence and sway kind of sometimes has to move slowly to bring everyone along with it. But the stuff that's happening at the minute, the big change at the minute is the commercialisation of it, the amount of money that's pouring into the GAA, which is sort of, there is a sort of a, without being too dramatic about it, there is a sort of a battle for the soul of the thing at the minute, and I think Joe Brolly writes about that an awful lot. And like, sometimes it can be overdone, but it is kind of significant. There is a massive disconnect between club and county. I think it's only getting bigger. It is impossible now to win an All-Ireland title without significant, serious financial backing. Like, I would go so far as to say it's actually impossible. The first thing Liam Sheedy did when he came in was make sure that that he would have the necessary backing in place to help Tipperary. Like, he set up that committee, that fundraise on their behalf and all that. So, you know, that wasn't the case even 20 years ago. You needed something, but you didn't need what you need now. Again, going back to Liam Sheedy, he was asked about what was the big difference between when he finished in 2010 and now. And his answer was that he says, well, geez, we nearly need a second bus for the size of the back.
And they do, yeah. It's like 25, 26 people, or whatever it was.
And that's only going one way as well. It's not coming back. It's not coming back.
Yes, that is the new reality. That is exactly how, because you can't pare that back. You can't say there's a limited amount of money that you're allowed to spend on this, because it'll be it's
impossible to police.
You know, friends of whatever county will end up paying for it. So technically it's not the county board paying for it, but actually it is the funding for the...
Yeah, so if you just have a private benefactor and he picks up, let's say, for example, a training weekend or a training week in Spain, that's not like kind of like the salary cap thing in American football. If it's done outside the salary cap, it's there's nothing you can do. And can you tell private individuals that they can't donate stuff to their county team? No, you can't. So it would be impossible to police.
So the money's never going to go back. So this battle for the soul, is it as pronounced? Because, you know, you're obviously still involved in a club. Like, does your club feel disaffected or unconnected to the Meath senior footballers?
Well, this is the thing about it is Meath are sort of, because they're going well again, there's always a little bit more patience and wriggle room within a county, and they're willing to forgive a little bit more. So if you go back to, say, Donegal, when Jim McGuinness brought them from sort of being a bit of unorganised and completely underperforming in terms of their own potential to winning the All-Ireland. If you remember those couple of years, the Donegal Championship was basically condensed into about 4 or 6 weeks, and it was played off. And I think Carol Lacey picked up a bad injury on the back of playing so many games, coming straight off an All-Ireland series, playing so many games. But people in Donegal didn't mind at the time because the county team were going well. But even that only lasts so long. So when people are happy enough to go along with things, they're not going to sit in their hands until October every year to play their club championship, no matter how much they're winning. So
the problem is just a fixtures problem then. If you fix the fixtures, everything else falls into place.
Well,
the separate, so you don't need, it's not a battle for the soul anymore if at the start of the year you and Tommy know these are your club weekends and there's going to be games these weekends and you can go on holidays this, because that's...
They've been trying to do that, but it in my experience it didn't really work. It never worked out quite as easy, and then you'd be on a certain weekend, but it could be from anywhere from Thursday to Sunday. So in itself is a bit of a, you know what I mean, do I have this weekend or do I not have this weekend? And it's only actually when you meet someone from outside the circle who didn't grow up or come up with this, that you start to realise that it's a little bit ridiculous that, like, you know, you're essentially waiting on either at the very beginning of things, the Meath Chronicle to come out with the fixtures, or you're waiting on the website to be updated on a Monday. And like, that's, people won't put up with that anymore. And that's not a Meath problem, that's nationwide.
So everybody knows what the issue is. But is the commercialisation really such a problem when it's the fixtures that seems to be driving the disaffection of the rank and file? These are separate issues, aren't they?
It's a problem insofar as when you need money to win things, it's going to have a bigger divide between the haves and the have-nots. I would say that the fixtures issue it's related, but it's largely separate. If you still want people to play games, they need organised schedule of games. People won't put their lives on hold anymore for that stuff. They just won't. They're not that interested, particularly when you can go and play local soccer and you know that you're out every Saturday, barring the pitch being waterlogged for probably 16 of 18 weekends in a row, and you're playing 2 o'clock on Saturday at a home and away. That's it. That's an awful lot more attractive than, well, you're in it till you're out of it, and you will be out, but 2 weeks after the county team are beaten. And for example, in Meath last year went out in round 1 of the championship, round 1 of the qualifier, I think 9th of June it was, the earliest you could possibly be out of the championship. And this year they ended up going out, only 4 teams went further than them. They're in the Super 8s. So, imagine trying to plan your schedule around that.
Yeah, it is tricky.
I think it's more than tricky. I think it's sort of, people will say, do you know what, I love it, but I can do other things with my time here.
Well, you could have a 16-week inter-county season and a 16-week club season, and they could be separate. Now, the difficulty becomes the hurling and football run off at the same time, and the dual clubs becomes a big issue.
I've heard people say that, and it's a fine idea in theory, but you don't want to put any more of a wedge between the club and the county. And if you're separating them out,
so just separating the seasons, as in the time of the year.
If you're separating them out, then you don't feel like that you might just have fellas feeling like they're not part of the thing anymore. And the reason why it works and the reason why people care is because they feel like they're part of it.
So you need proximity to the inter-county team season.
I think you need to feel. I think what works for fellas is that they see someone playing in Croke Park on a Sunday, and maybe 2 weeks later they get a crack at them in club football, right. Or they get to say, "Oh, geez, I played against him," or I think that means a lot to people.
Yeah. So you could do that though, in that like your club season would be April, May, June, maybe mid-March to mid-June, and then your inter-county season is the next 4 months.
But then you're leaving your club players idle from mid-June to mid-March.
Could you play league? Could you play something else?
You could, go back to the fixtures thing. Like,
how many games a year does a club player want?
Well, he probably wants. Well, you see, the thing about, and I've written about this a few times in the GAA, the term they always use is meaningful competition and meaningful games. So that means very different things in very different counties, and this is where the difficulty arises. Like the idea that 32 county boards and 4 provincial councils and a central body are all making fixtures that are all interlinked in different ways, and we're expecting it to work is kind of madness. Now, the GAA have said that they can't go and tell a county how to run their business for various reasons. But I do think if you gave them and said, listen, here are 8 weekends, run your championship. Those are the 8 weekends. We're going to run our championship around it. I think there might be something in that. But look, loads of good people have worked hard on this, and no one's come up with anything. And again, it goes back to the slow being hard to come by in the GAA.
In that way, it feels like using it as a stick to beat the GAA is unfair. That like people are working on it. There is a willingness to try and change things. It's just that.
I don't think it's necessarily a Croke Park problem. I think it's the 32 county boards would have very stringent ideas on how they should run their affairs, because maybe it's what suits them best in their particular makeup of their county versus hurling and football, and if that they're doing it in their own best interest, but it's probably not in the interest of the greater good, which in fairness isn't their remit. If you're a county board, your county board is to run your competitions you see fit. It's not necessarily to. Well,
unless what you do what Charlotte Burns is saying, and you go back to first principles, and every county board then has the same remit, which is to get the most amount of people playing the games as possible. And if everything filters down to that, then it's more games for more people at underage level. It's more coaches at underage level. It's better facilities at underage level. It's better, and that bubbles up to why don't we all just have the same structures for our championships? Because we'll sit down, we'll agree. This is how a championship should be run. There should be a senior division with 10 teams or 12 teams or 8 teams, and there should be 4 divisions: senior, intermediate, junior, junior A, junior B, junior C if you need it.
But how do you find a uniform championship structure that will suit, say, Meath with 40 plus 50 odd clubs, a handful of hurling clubs within that, and say Cork, who have divisions. That's a better example of Cork, who have divisions, and they have hurling and football, and they have regional championship teams. You know, like that. They're so.
The regional championship teams are definitely like a little kink that's going to be very difficult to overcome for Kerry, and I didn't realise Cork do it as well, do they? And
yeah, they have. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great idea, unless that's the idea that everybody uses, is that like you've got your club championship, you've got your regional championships later on, and that could be something that happens when the intercounty season is on.
But there you're proposing to fix the fixtures by introducing another competition.
Yeah, but actually you have to reduce everything else and say you're not going to have a league and separate championship. I think there needs to be one way of doing it is to try and come up with a uniform structure that exists in every county. That is a set number of divisions and a set number of teams in your top division, second division, and call them whatever divisions you want, right? The hurling and football is also an issue. Like, unless you just say, look lads, if you want to play hurling and football, you're going to have to play, there are going to be weekends, you're going to have to play 2 games. I don't know if there's any other way around that.
Yeah, imagine the level of resistance you'll meet there. Like, look, didn't Coola have their lady footballers and the Camogie players last weekend out in, and they had to forfeit the Camogie game.
Same day.
Was it same day or in consecutive days? But either way, I think it was same day. But they had to, so like, it's such a thorny issue, and it's so, like, I feel sorry for the people who've been charged with trying to figure it out, because they're going to meet resistance at every turn.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like people getting games called off because, you know, little Johnny has a hamstring, and it's like, oh, you know, we found a great grand uncle who died 4 parishes over that we're going to get the game cancelled for. All that stuff. That's also the stuff that causes fixture backlogs. Yeah.
Well, in fairness, I think county boards have got a hold of that, and I think there's a realisation among clubs that, you know, only in extraordinary circumstances can that happen. It's certainly happening less than from my own experience would be it's happening less than it was with games being called off at the last minute. I would just say that it just going back to the original point, there is a sort of a bit of a disconnect within the GAA at the minute in terms of what the thing is about, what we're trying to do, and who you're trying to do it for. So,
is that true?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think when we spent an awful lot of the last 2 weeks talking about money and development. Is that the first time in the history of an All-Ireland Championship win that we started talking about money? Like, I'm after ringing the last 2 days. I'm after ringing 5 fellas who would be involved in the new Tier 2 Championship in 2020, assuming the thing comes in, and they all have the same sort of, like, you know, they repeated the theme that basically said, look, the fear was they'd be cut adrift a little bit, and, you know, one of them was Terry Hyland, the Leitrim manager, and he said to me that he says, that's fine, he says, but there needs to be a bigger plan. If you're putting this Tier 2 Championship, there needs to be a bigger plan, that all the money that's been made in Tier 1 needs to come back down, and that's what we're talking about now. We're talking about money, and it's fine, it's a fair point, but were we talking about money 10 years ago to this extent?
I don't know. I think we've been talking about money since that strategic review in 2001. Like, I think since the new Croke Park happened, since they knocked down the old Croke Park, I think there's been a sense that the organisation is generating lots of revenue, and like,
which is a good thing, I think. By the way,
yeah, totally. And I feel like the story about the coaching that's going on, like, in the schools, isn't a story that's being told enough that people don't fully appreciate and understand. Like, so my kids benefit from the local games development, GDA or
GDO or something. Yeah.
She comes into the school, and that's how they're experiencing Gaelic at the minute, and it's in a new school, so there isn't a great tradition of it. But if the money wasn't coming, then that wouldn't happen, and there's a far greater chance that they're going to be involved because of the good quality coaching that they're getting from somebody coming in than there would be because she just doesn't want to go, and it clashes with the local club, clashes with something else that she wants to do at the time. So, okay. But she's going to get, I know that we're going to be a GAA family because this is happening. So I completely see the benefit of the money, and the money comes from the sponsorship, and the money comes from the central funding. So, like, it's not a one-way thing where the money is just this bad thing where Terry Hyland feels that they're not getting enough of that. The answer to that is to give more money to the Tier 2 and to put that plan in place. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the point is that we're talking about money, and, you know, and we weren't talking about money 15, 20.
Maybe that's an Irish thing. Maybe we need to talk about money.
Well, yeah, maybe we do, and maybe we need to talk about the distribution of it and all that, like, which is a whole show on its own probably. But like, it's just it's in a particular place at the minute, GAA. I think every year we're going to break records for spend on county team, and the teams who have money are more likely to be successful. And
that's inarguable. That is true.
And it's only going one way in that regard.
All right, so it's 8:46 this morning. You're watching OTB AM, or maybe you're listening to us on the Go Loud app, which you can get in the App Store. Highly recommend that. You can just select Off the Ball as your home station. We'll be in your earballs 24 hours a day.